Hello everyone, and welcome to the last game we'll be showing from round 10 of the 2013 Candidates Tournament. It's Alexander Grischuk versus Vladimir Kramnik. And at the time this game was played, it caught a lot of media attention, and I will tell you why after this game, and then you will be able to decide for yourselves if there's anything to this story, or maybe not. So we only have two photos from this round. Here is a photo of Kramnik before the game, waiting for Grischuk to appear. Nothing out of the ordinary in the photo. And here we have a photo from the opening was played, and now it seems to be Grischuk's move, and a nice photo all in all. So let's see this game. We have e4, e5, knight to f3, knight c6, and bishop to b5, the Ruy Lopez. And of course, Kramnik goes for the Berlin defense. We have knight to f6. And it's very interesting, as Kramnik did use the Berlin defense to defeat Garry Kasparov in their 2000 World Chess Championship match. Vladimir Kramnik is considered somewhat of an expert in this opening. But Kramnik did say something very interesting about this in an interview after the game, but I will mention this after the game. So we have castles, knight captures on e4. Let me just take care of the sound. Once again, I have blundered it. Okay, that takes care of it. d4, knight to d6, bishop captures on c6, removing the defender of the e5 pawn, d captures on c6, and now d captures on e5. Knight to f5, queen captures on d8, king captures, the queens are now off the board, and knight to c3. So this is the standard line. Everyone has seen it 1,000 times, and it's very hard for white to push here for something more than a draw. Black is very solid here, and especially since Kramnik is playing with the black pieces, then black is really very solid here. We have bishop to d7, h3, h6, and rook to d1. And already, you know how people say, the Berlin, it's a very, very, very boring opening. But it's already a very poisonous position. Here, king to c8 was played, and king to c8. Okay, you might think, yeah, okay, I'm getting out of the line of the rook, but is there any immediate threat here? Is this perhaps a waste of a tempo? Can't I make like a useful move, and then maybe later, if I will have to move the king, only then move the king? Well, it's very hard to say. Moving the king away from this rook's file is the best thing you can do. If you play a seemingly active move, for example, like bishop to c5, then you're immediately losing the game. Seems like you didn't do anything wrong, but in fact, after knight to e4, there's really no good place for you to to move this bishop. The bishop is not defended on c5, and there's really nowhere for you to put it. Bishop to e7, you take away the only square this knight has. g4 will then trap the knight. If you move it all the way to f8, then again g4 is coming. After you move knight to e7, then you have this e6 idea. Either you will lose the bishop or you will capture, and then after knight to e5, again rook captures the bishop will be a threat. And on the other hand, after something like bishop to c5, if you move it to b6, if you move it after knight e4, if you move it to b6, then you get c4, a very poisonous move. You definitely don't want to allow c5, because then g4 and d6 are coming. So c5, making room for this knight on d4, but it doesn't help you. g4, knight here, knight captures, pawn captures, c5 is coming. Bishop to a5, and now rook captures on d4. Again, you're threatening b4 to capture the bishop here. And after you make room for the bishop, then again you get bishop captures on h6, or pretty much white has a lot of options here, but simply making room for the rook will give white a beautiful position that will be sufficient to win the game. So yeah, seemingly, a peaceful opening. There's a lot of poison to it. So after rook to d1, king to c8. If you're a Berlin player, just move your king, don't make your life difficult. We have a4, a5, b3 now, and b6. Bishop to b2, knight to e7, rook to d2, and c5 now. Knight to e2, knight to g6, rook a to d1, with a double attack on the bishop here. Bishop to e6 now, and c4. So already you can see that the queen side is completely blocked. There's really nothing to hope for here. So you have to look for play on either in the middle of the board or on the king side. Bishop to e7, knight to c3. There are maybe some ideas of knight to b5 or knight to d5 in the future. King to b7, making room for the a8 rook to enter the game, and now knight to d5. Attacking the bishop on e7. Rook 8 to d8, knight captures on e7, rook captures on d2, knight captures on e7, and now knight to f1. Remaneuvering the knight and now keeping control of the d file with the rook. King to c8, and not allowing this rook any activity, and now rook to d8 is coming. Kramnik is preparing to exchange even more pieces. We have f3, now comes g5, knight to g3, and rook to d8. Rook captures and king captures, and here you have a pretty standard position. It's a bishop against knight on both sides. The position is pretty equal. Kramnik does have doubled pawns, but it's nothing serious that would give white the advantage. And there are opposite colored bishops, so if the knights come off the board, it will be very hard to achieve anything with either side. So it would be very hard to imagine that either Kramnik or Grischuk would actually win this game. But, you know, it's chess, anything can happen, so let's see what happened. King to f2 by Grischuk, bishop to f5, knight captures, and g4 now, attacking the knight. Here, knight to d4 was played, and this is only move 29. There are 11 more moves to be made to reach time control, and what do you do here? Well, obviously, Kramnik is preparing to capture the b3 pawn. So there's really no good way to stop this, this is why the game caught a lot of attention. Obviously, Grischuk allowed this because he was planning bishop captures on d4. But the only good move you have here, perhaps not the only, but the best move for white is actually king to e3. And now knight captures on b3 is possible, but it's not really all that bad for white, because after knight captures, white will push e6, give yet another pawn, and now if you capture the pawn, then bishop to g7 will pick up all of the kingside pawns black has, and then white will be winning this game. So instead of actually capturing this e-pawn, the king has to come help out with the defense. And after king captures, then the bishop isn't able to come here. But now you can see that there are no squares available for this knight. So this knight is unable to move anywhere, and white will be better in this endgame. It's hard to say if white can actually push for the win, but white will be better. So it's very hard to understand the move Grischuk made here. Here, as you've seen, so it's not a for a player of Grischuk's caliber, it's not a move that he would miss. But he played bishop captures on d4. So of course Kramnik recaptured. We have c captures on d4, and this was actually the move that lost Grischuk the game. Because now after king to e2, we have king to d7, king to d3, c5 now, defending the d4 pawn, king to e4. It seems like white's king is more active, but after king to e6, now you have this classic situation where there are no useful moves for white. So white doesn't have a single useful move for his pawn, and black will have a useful move for his pawn. If white decides to move the king, then black will simply capture the e5 pawn. So white has to make a pawn move. The only pawn move that doesn't lose the game, I mean it does, but seemingly it doesn't, is f4. So Grischuk plays this, g captures, king captures, and now comes the move that, of course, it's very hard to imagine that Grischuk would miss such a move from that position where he played bishop captures on d4. But since you are already such an excellent endgame player, I'm sure you don't even have to pause the video to find Kramnik's move here. But you know, feel free to pause it, and of course, if you found it, I don't know if it's okay to even congratulate you, because I know you already saw the move before I even told you to pause the video. But okay, if you found it, congratulations, you are an excellent endgame player. And if you just want to enjoy the show, then of course the move is d3. And this is a pretty standard idea in king and pawn endgames, where white doesn't have any useful moves and black does. So d3. The king has to stop the pawn. You cannot allow d2. So king to e3 was played, and now comes king captures on e5. King captures on d3, and now king to f4. We have king to e2, now comes king to g3, king to e3. Of course, there's nothing white can do to prevent black from capturing the pawns. King captures, king to f4 defending. We have king to h5, and after king to f5, king to g3 was played, and it was in this position that Alexander Grischuk resigned the game. He resigned because, as you can see, the king is covering f4, the pawn is covering g5, so the king has to move away from the pawn. After king moves, Kramnik will simply gobble up the g4 pawn, and after king captures on f7, then the h pawn will simply win the game easily. So yeah, after king to g3, there was nothing Grischuk could do, and he resigned the game. So this was the topic of all discussions. Did Grischuk really miss bishop captures on d4? Because you've seen in the game between Kramnik and Svidler, everyone was saying that Svidler threw the game so Kramnik could catch up to Carlsen faster. Like Russians working together, and then they were saying, wait till you see Kramnik's game against Grischuk, and who would have known that such a position will occur and that Grischuk will seemingly throw the game. But blunders happen, it's blind spots happen, anything happens in chess. So of course people will say a lot of things, but I don't think anything like this happened. Seems like a perfectly reasonable blunder. But yeah, it did happen, and it did raise a lot of suspicion. So that was the game. I do hope you enjoyed it, and we do have the standings, as this is the last game we'll be showing from round 10. So here it is. After round 10, Magnus Carlsen is in first place with 7 points. Then we have Aronian with 6.5, and I did receive even further confirmation from subscribers from Armenia that I am in fact pronouncing Levon Aronian correctly. So just wanted to say that. With 6.5, we have Vladimir Kramnik with 6 after this win against Alexander Grischuk. Then Grischuk with 4.5, Gelfand with 4.5, Svidler with 4.5, and then Ivanchuk and Radjabov in last place with 3.5 points. So a couple of more rounds to go in the 2013 Candidates Tournament. I do hope you're enjoying the coverage so far. I would like to thank Barry Van Leuven for a contribution to my channel. Sorry, I forgot to add the amount of your contribution yesterday. I have no idea how that happened. Kamil Tsarnogorsky and FD Grant also for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon with a couple of nice games from round 11 of the 2013 Candidates Tournament. Thank you all, and I'll see you soon.